Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Not the match reaction I was expecting to make this afternoon. Rangers 3, Celtic 0. The final score from Ibrox this afternoon and the final derby of the season. A derby which, you know, we said was pretty irrelevant heading into, but I don't want to use that as an excuse. I don't want to use that as a cop-out for what we've seen today at Ibrox. I think that we just need to sit down and be bitterly honest about it, rather than dancing around anything else. We were really poor. It was a disgraceful performance. It's an inexcusable performance. And listen, I'm sure the manager will be very, very blunt and honest about that when he gets to speak to the media and the fallout in the coming days. I think that will be pretty evident after he speaks. It was disgraceful. It was a really big letdown from us. I wasn't expecting it to be a classic, and I wasn't expecting Celtic to go to Ibrox and run riot today. Even though we headed there as champions and we went in with the momentum being on our side from the past derby games, it wasn't going to be easy, but I certainly didn't expect that. And there's no room for excuses. We'll come on to talking about the bigger picture. We'll come on to talking about being we're champions anyway and all that jazz. But sometimes you've got to put that aside and you've got to talk about the game itself and you've got to talk about the performance from the 11 players on the park. And it was just far from good enough. It's not the standard that Celtic have set since Ange Postecoglou's came in. And it's certainly not the standard for Celtic moving forward. So I think you've got to sit down and be real about it. I think you've got to be honest about it. And that's exactly what I plan on doing today. At the same time, I'm not going to overreact. I'm not going to be one of these reactionary fans that say that we're in trouble or we've been shite for weeks or there's a wake-up call. We know how good we are, and today doesn't change that. I don't think there's need for overreaction because, put it this way, in a few weeks' time, when we're lifting the league title and when we're lifting a potential treble at Hampden, the tone will change, the supporters will be happy, and we'll head into the summer with all the happiness and momentum on our side once more. Today, unacceptable, but it's certainly not course for, it's not cause, for overreaction either. I think it doesn't change the trajectory of where this Celtic side is heading in the slightest. But what it does do is it opens eyes. It maybe shows you that some players aren't good enough, that we do need a bit more depth in this side. But we can certainly use that to our advantage. Today we gave players a chance, and they didn't take the chance. And maybe that will speak volumes as to how many chances they can get next year and how trustworthy they are next year as we look to make more history and we look to get better on the domestic and the European front. It maybe helps suss out who's good enough for that and who's not, who's ready to be here and who's not. There are little things that you can take from today that can be looked at as positives, as an advantage. But in general, shambolic. I know this is the kind of video that I'm going to get plenty of opposition fans coming on to watch to see what I say and to get my opinion. And what I will say off the bat is fair play to Rangers. I don't like saying it. Nobody likes giving credit to the opposition, whether it be Celtic to Rangers, Rangers to Celtic. You don't like doing it, but I need to sit here and say they were a far better team today. There's no doubt about that. There's not even a point in trying to pretend. They were the far better team today. They started the game better. They stayed in the game better. They ended the game better. Celtic weren't in it at all. And yeah, we were extremely poor. But Rangers took advantage of that. And they turned up the better side today. They just looked more hungry, which I expected. I said that in my preview. I think they would have wanted it more than us today to try and salvage something. That says it all, that. Interruptions aside, I always did expect them to want it a bit more today, but I didn't expect Celtic to meet that with the performance and the attitude that we did. We looked so lazy. We looked like we had nothing to do with that game today, and some players need to give their head a wobble, because it's all very well and good sitting there and saying players had a poor performance and they just couldn't get into the game. It didn't look as though we wanted to get into the game. There was too many players there that looked as though they were just there to gather the wage and move on. We're champions anyway. I'm getting my medal at the end of the season. That's what I got from today's game. And, you can talk about it being a pointless derby, but that's not the attitude that players should carry in a derby game. The attitude they should carry is to beat the bastards at any given occasion. And today, nobody on that park suggested that was the kind of mentality that we all had. I think if you look at the 11 that started the game anyway, pass marks maybe go to one player, and that's Carl Starfelt. Yeah, he had that slip going towards the third goal, and that kind of takes the shine off of his somewhat good performance. But in general, the 11 didn't look as though they cared. They didn't look as though they wanted anything, and it let Rangers really just control that game, and make us look really amateur at points. Players, we couldn't string a pass, and we were letting them get in amongst us. We were letting players like Cantwell and Lundstrom in the middle of the park bully us off the ball. We were letting them beat us to every second ball. It just felt like everything that we could have chased and everything that we could have done to make us look hungry in the game, we ignored, and we let them just overcome us in both technicality and or technical ability, whatever you want to say, and just in general hunger for the game. They just look better in all departments today, and that's just not like Celtic. The manner of the goals that we conceded today was just extremely poor. The third one was a right nail in the coffin to what was one of our worst defensive displays that we've seen all season. And you've got to talk about a few of the players in that back line today. Starfelt, as I said, one of the only players in the park, the only player in the park who I would be generous enough to give pass marks to. They're not flying pass marks, don't get me, I'm not saying it was great. But the other three alongside him in that back line today, I want to be lenient on Kobayashi. I want to be generous because he has been thrown in the deep end with Vickers being out, and this is very early in his Celtic career, so I want to be a little bit lighter on him. But Bernabei in particular, Ralston I thought was really one of his worst performances. I thought he was really, really poor. He looked his old self, and I know that's not what we should expect from him going forward. I hope that Ralston can get back to his best, but he just looked so frightened to be the player that he was last season. And I know he spent an awful lot of time in the sidelines, but going into a derby game, you shouldn't be frightened. But the other one, the left back, Bernabei, oh no. I have been patient with Bernabei, and I like him. I do. I like him because I feel like there's something there that could be turned into a player. But by all accounts, especially judging off today, you really do doubt that he's good enough to ever play first team football for Celtic. Is he a reliable player? You'd think for the money that we spent and, the ability that we thought he'd possessed, that he could at least pass a ball. You'd think that's a minimal requirement for someone of his position for the price that we paid. And he can't. And that's really worrying, and he was just so out his depth on that left-hand side. And the back line, just in general, and this goes for the whole team. I'm going to take the light off of the back line here for a moment. Today, it looked as though the team didn't know each other, and the team didn't want to play with each other. I'm not going to criticise the manager for making changes today. I know he made a couple of big calls, bringing O into the team, bringing Abada back into the team, Bernabei starting as well. These are big calls. I'm not going to be too critical on him because I feel like it's a kind of game where, I would have liked to have seen some changes if he wanted to make them. I didn't expect it, but I would have liked it. And I did like it when the team came out. But the team just didn't look as though they wanted to play with each other. They looked as though there was such a lack of communication, a lack of understanding. We didn't have that same fluidity in our game when we passed the ball. People looked out of position. People were confused. And just as the game went on, we just looked less and less arsed. And we didn't want to rectify any of the mistakes we were making. We just kept making more and more. And that proper pissed me off as the game went on. Because usually we've got a team of players here and big characters in this team, especially in the midfield as well. We've got such technical wizards. The Matt O'Reilly's there, the Rio Hatatis, Callum McGregor's. You expect them to be the kind of players who obviously grab the game by the scruff of the neck. Grab it by the collar and just drag something out of it. And they didn't. And it just looked as though nobody wanted to do that. It just looked as though we didn't care and we weren't communicating and we weren't doing the things we normally do. And it's those basics that when you strip them away from any football side, whether it be Ange Postecoglou's Celtic, Brendan Rodgers' Celtic, the best team in the world, Manchester City, when you take away the basics, the fundamentals of football, the communication, and the fluidity of everything that should go right, when you take that away, you've got nothing. And today, we had nothing. We just didn't make any chances to even say, that's what I mean. There's no point in dancing around anything. No point in beating around the bush. There's no, we were unlucky or their 3 goals were lucky or anything like that. None of that nonsense. We created nothing. We had 2 good chances and we should have buried both of them. Oh, in the first half, O'Reilly in the second half. Fair play to McCrory, makes a good save for the O'Reilly chance. But oh, I love a chip. I love it. It looks nice, and when it goes in, it pays off. But when he's in that position he was in, put your laces through it and bust in it. That's all you have to do. Oh, had a massive chance today to impress and really get Celtic supporters on his side. And he didn't take it. And O'Reilly as well, I just feel he was a bit more unlucky. But once again, he's the kind of player that should be burying those opportunities. And he didn't. And they're the only two chances that are worth talking about in Celtic's side. The only two. And we didn't take them, so what can you do? Defensively, we missed Carter Vickers. We looked like we had no confidence when we were defending set pieces whatsoever. And then when we were attacking set pieces, we really got frightened in that second half. Let's be real. Every corner we got, we were playing it short. And I know it's hard when you've got players like Goldson in that box who just head everything away. So maybe it is better to try and change things up. But we didn't have confidence in what we were doing. We didn't even believe in ourselves, it felt like. So whether we were going short or long, we were getting nothing. I think Cameron Carter-Vickers is a big part of that. Not having him and his physical presence for any set piece, whether it be attacking or defending them. We didn't have that. We missed that. And I can't wait to have him back in the side next season, to be honest. It's never nice losing these derbies. Never. I don't care the circumstances. I hated watching that today. I hated losing that from 1-0 to 3-0. Every moment of it. I hated it. And it doesn't represent anything about our season. Absolutely not. As I said, bigger picture is in a few weeks' time we could have a treble and we will be the happiest set of supporters on earth. And once again, Rangers fans will have to accept the reality of that. But it doesn't excuse anything about today. It's unacceptable. And I hope that Ange drills that through to these players. They need to work hard in Lennoxtown, need to redeem themselves with the last few performances this season. And there's no guarantee about this treble. You know, Inverness aren't going to turn up and lie down. They might be in the league below us. Doesn't mean they're going to be easy to beat. So we need to learn from that today. And we need to take these, because we looked very complacent. We looked very lackadaisical. We looked lazy. And you can't afford to give any teams opportunities when you're like that. You know, even if it's Inverness or Rangers, doesn't matter. So we need to learn from that today. We really do. Disappointing. The only positive that I can take from that is if it wants to give them that little bit of false confidence heading into next season, I wouldn't mind. But it is a summer that we need to build on now, and I have no doubt whatsoever in my mind that we will get better. I don't, and I'm not going to let today throw that off at all. Not one bit. I have full faith that Ange will identify the correct players and will identify the right approach to take in making us better next season. And rolling into next season, I expect us to go back and pick up from where we've left off on this campaign, and that's domination, and that's beating Rangers game after game. So let's learn from this. Let's move forward from this in a productive way. Yes, okay. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed. That'll do. Right, see you later.